So, Dan, let me ask you a question. What would you have felt like if you had met that deadline?
Better.
Okay, good.
Relieved.
Okay, all right. Now we've got a word I can use. Better is not a word that we can do so much with, but relieved. Okay. What else?
A sense of accomplishment.
Oh, now we're getting close to it. And so now you've deprived yourself of a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
But you still have the relief because whether you meet the deadline or not, the deadline is passed, and so you can relax after the deadline, whether you meet it or not.
That's true.
In fact, that's how you are right now. I'm getting back into meditation. Screw this deadline stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So what you have been deprived of is what you're calling a sense of accomplishment.
Okay.
Okay. So is that what you want? I mean, is that what life is all about?
A sense of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Um. I guess maybe not about the sense of accomplishment, but seems like accomplishing things might be part of it.
All right. So what's the point of accomplishing things? Let me ask you that question in a different way. Um, are accomplishments and the sense of accomplishment and the sense of uh, feeling good or even feeling like a winner, are they related? Are your feelings completely independent of your sense of accomplishment?
Well, clearly not independent, or I feel better about it.
All right. Well, what we're pointing to is part of the practice of anapanasati that I haven't talked to you very much about. But we have covered the basic details, which you know, which is especially centered around the gladdening of the mind, in the sense of the accomplishment of having recognized the mind has wandered away from the breath. And that recognition is the wake up or the sati, knowing to look. And with already the right view of that it's better to be accomplishing something in meditation than it is to be failing a deadline mentally, then by that right view, one can practice anapanasati correctly. So when the mind wanders away, we grab it, we say, and I will talk about grabbing in a moment, but doing it with some intensity of gladdening the mind and saying, I've got you, I caught you, and feeling comfortable and good and satisfied. Start building the sense of satisfaction that is based upon success. Because when you missed the deadline, that's what you missed out on, was that feeling of success. You mentioned it in the sense of accomplishment. But accomplishment is what a winner does. Accomplishes something a lion does. Be unaccomplished or not having the feeling of accomplishment is what the victim does. So you put yourself in the state of victim, and you've chosen to do that over some artificial deadline.
Okay.
How did you approach the deadline when you first heard it? What was your thought about it when you first heard it? You had a deadline that you had to meet.
That's really close. Am I going to be able to make it or not?
So you started in doubt.
Yeah, or unsureness.
Okay. So one of the choices that you might have had if you had thought about it would have been the choice of, this is not a challenge at all. I don't need to change the way that I'm working. That if the challenge is met, the challenge is met. And if it's not, then it doesn't matter one whit or another. And you can actually just tell that to the boss. Okay, the boss, this challenge that you give me about this deadline, remember that that's your deadline. It's not mine. I don't buy it. You'll get the best performance out of me that I can give you, but I am not going to put in extra suffering, pain, and pleasure, not pleasure, but pain and suffering over doing something that may not be possible.
Yeah, but you can put in more effort than you do regularly, temporarily, right? In order to,
You can put in more time, but I wouldn't necessarily equate time with effort.
yeah, you can put in more time.
Mm. But is the more time more useful?
I mean, I got a lot more done during that period of time than I otherwise would. I
All
turned it
right.
into a paper
Is
which we submitted, so that it counted for something that I did that.
all right. Is the boss satisfied with that?
Yeah, I think he's satisfied that a lot got done. Um, yeah, I mean, we're not getting funded for it, so
Pardon?
we're not getting funded for it, so it's kind of bittersweet. So, but it became a paper, so that's good.
Okay.
So it's
So
not. Sorry.
why was the funded denied?
So
It
we were.
sounds like a sham now. It sounds like that they said, "Oh, I'm going to hold this carrot out, and if you don't grab it in time, I'm going to withdraw it."
So
If you did the work, what difference does it make whether it happened this hour or the next? I don't understand why that happened.
no, because they meet. Okay, I can explain it to you, but it's gonna take a few minutes too. So I don't know whether it's worth explaining or not. It's up to you to
In
listen.
other words, their meeting time was more important to them than getting the results.
Yeah,
They
but
were,
it's for a national agency that meets a certain number of times per year. So
mhm,
just pragmatically, they can only meet at certain times, and so you have deadlines for those times that they meet. And so
okay,
they wouldn't pragmatically be able to give extensions to different people because they're meeting to review at least 25 grants or so at a time. So it's just the system. So the next deadline would be the next deadline is actually in a month. And we're going to have to resubmit basically um, that grant. Um,
but you've
anyway,
already got the paperwork done for the last one, so you know how to do a grant to get it done.
yeah, that's true, but we don't know what we have to change to get it the next time because we don't have the
Why change anything? If
because
they accepted it one time, they'll
they
accept it
didn't
again.
they didn't accept it. It didn't get funded.
Oh, I thought the proposal was a two-step process in the sense that you submit and then you perform.
Yeah, no. So you submit it and
And
then
I thought it was a deadline rather than a failed paper.
Yeah, well, this is why it's complicated. So, okay, so yes, so we have these deadlines, and you can submit for these deadlines. Um, this is the second time we've submitted this grant. Um, we submitted it,
Is this to
but
the CDC?
it's the NIH.
NIH, okay.
The CDC is actually easier to get money from, but it's not as much money, at least for what we're doing. And for what we're doing, we need more money. So, um, yeah, but the problem is that um, because people haven't really done what we proposed,
People.
it, like no one has really done exactly what we proposed. So some people doubt whether it'll work.
Oh, you mean your competitors?
Well, no one, yeah, or I don't think of them that way, but yeah, competitors or just nobody has done it, and as a result, um, people have doubted that we would be able to do it. Um, so the idea of getting
Can
in,
you do it?
yeah, but the idea of getting in this paper is to,
Get the money to do it. I got you.
is to prove that we can do it. So the
Oh,
idea was to finish the paper, have it submitted, and then have the board that's reviewing the grant be made aware of our submission and then provide them with a copy. That was the idea. Even
okay.
better if we could get reviews back and send that to the reviewers. That was the whole idea, and it would have probably made the difference because we got pretty close to getting funded. So
Okay. So
that,
it sounds to me like that there is actually one deadline after another, which means that the line is not quite dead.
yeah,
So good
it's,
luck. Never mind. Start again. Good luck next time.
yeah, no, that's what it is. I'm not beating myself up about it because I put everything I could have into it and it didn't happen. So there's no apologies involved. I didn't apologize to my boss. It's what it is. But and I got a tremendous amount of stuff done and it's submitted. So that paper is submitted and I think it's going to be a really good paper even though we missed the deadline. The problem is I get paid from from making deadlines. So have to figure something out with respect to that. But like I said, um, it's a scramble right now to get money. So, and it's a competitive environment right now to get money. But
You're talking about at the corporate level or at the personal paycheck level?
um, well, it's one and the same for my current position. So my money is starting to come from grants that I get, which is good for me if I
Mm-hmm.
get them. So the idea is that I get independence when I do that. And
You get hungry, call me. I'll make sure that you don't starve. Other than that, you're good to go.
oh, yeah, but also it's stuff that I consider important to do that I think is important for public health, and this is why I'm working as hard as I am. Is that, um, yeah, I can explain what it is. You might be interested, but I don't know. It might derail us too. It's your call.
Well, um, for the audience sake, let's kind of skip it. They're probably not interested in that. But what we want to do is, in fact, turn everything into a victory. Not in the stupid way that Donald Trump does by lying about everything, but rather to recognize, in fact, that this is just how it is, and that the real victory has more to do with how you feel than the events. That there will be another chance to get that grant. So it's not really a line that's completely dead. That there will be more. And so you can hold out with that. Meanwhile, let's start working on the kind of feeling that you wanted if you had gotten the grant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that feeling of success. That's the feeling of, what did you, sense of accomplishment was the term you used.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you were looking for, right? That's what you wanted.
Well, it's on a short list for sure.
Okay. So let's start that and put that on the short list for meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm serious about this. Any way that you want to feel, and the whole world is out there wanting to feel a certain way, and most of their engagements with the world is towards the end of getting it.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for a high. We're looking for a peak moment. We're looking for a win, a success, and the satisfaction that goes with that. The 100-yard dash when the guy, the runner, is running that race. Just right before he actually wins the race, he knows he's going to win the race. And so he'll puff out his chest when he wins that race because he's got that juice, that joy that most of the people in the world are trying to get it from the outside world. Sometimes that happens when people buy a car. I've heard, in fact, I've been asked one time by a car salesman, "Don't you feel excited?" And when he asked that, I knew that that was the time he was going to bring out the paperwork that has the tiny little things that you need to stop being excited about and start reading. They wait until you're really excited before they give you the right stuff to not be excited over. So, what we're talking about is that there is a joy that we're looking for, a high of the moment. That part of the reason why you wanted that um, grant and you guys were calling it a deadline was because it's something that you really wanted. And if you had gotten, you'd have felt really good about.
Mm-hmm.
And that those were the motivations that are just as powerful as the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if that is in fact the highest good, if that's what people are wanting in life, is that jolt of success, then let's use that as a model in our meditation, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what we need to start looking for. Now, in the Anapanasati, we have been talking about it in the sense of gladdening the mind, to be very happy when you see that the mind has wandered away. But that's not really strong enough or powerful enough, not nearly as good a hit as meeting the deadline and getting the grant.
Mm-hmm.
Not yet, anyway. But what we're missing out of this picture is the issue about what in Anapanasati is called Vedana. And most specifically, it's state 5, 6, 7, and 8, and that it's going to take more than one talk to finish it off. But let's start off with the concept that there is a way of getting a really good feeling, because that's in fact what people are looking for throughout their whole lives. The real estate agent, when she gets both signatures of the buyer and the seller on that contract, that's when she gets her high. I've got it. And along with that will come the money. But the money is a come along. The real issue is getting that high from success. The runners do it. The real estate ladies do it. The bioengineers do it. Everybody does it. We're looking for a big win, a big goal. For college professors, it's often getting published or getting positive peer reviews. Things like this that give us that feeling of making the job that we've done worthwhile. This word that we're using in the Pali is called Piti. It's the high point. It's the high note that most people have for their life. a feeling of real success. And so in the practice of anapanasati, when you start to gladden the mind, you want to also feel that exhilaration of being successful at anapanasati. Why is that? Because deep down inside, just like deep down inside, you knew that if you missed that deadline, it wasn't really the end of the world. It wasn't really that big a deal. But that you missed out on that glorious high. And that's the big deal. That's what we mean by disappointment. It's the letdown that you won't starve. It's not really all about the money because next time you'll get the money. But it's the actual feeling of that loss of the juice of having done it. And so remind yourself, because you have had other opportunities to experience that. You've had other papers, you've had other grants, you've had other successes. So start working with that feeling of success directly in the mind and make that a task, make that a training to be done, a skill to be done, so that you wind up feeling really good because you're successful and you're training the mind to do that. Become like the lion. This is actually, in a way, its noble, right attitude. The attitude of a winner, the attitude of a lion, the attitude of total successful, the attitude of, we'll never mind that stupid deadline. It was artificial anyway. We'll get her. And look at this paper we've got.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if you think about it, it's only just a slight, small change of attitude. Nothing more than flipping the switch from off to on. But we want to do it over and over again, and we want to do it with intensity. The losers have no intensity. Winners have intensity. And in fact, you did that work intensely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we know that you can do that kind of work intensely. Do your meditation intensely also. And go after those joys, go after those highs, get some intensity working so that you can really experience the success of your meditation. And so that's step 5. That's Piti. Go for it. In fact, you've been going for it your whole life. You've been going for it now with bioengineering. Now let's go for it in anapanasati.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's the next point, is from steps 5 to step 6. After we have after we have success, comes satisfaction. Satisfaction is there quite quickly. It's almost like the in-breath is the rapture of the joy of winning, and then the out-breath is the relaxed sigh of satisfaction. So you can practice it like that. Every time you take an in-breath, oh, this is such a good one. Oh, well, I like that. And then we sigh. Now, basically, when that sigh happens or that out-breath, this is what in the sutras is called the point of sukha, which has satisfaction in it. And also in technical terms, by having the mind free from the hindrances and having the rapture or the sukha, having that high of success, and then the steady state of sukha comes in. This is now the gathering together of the jhana factors. This is first jhana. So that the mind is fit for work. And what the mind is fit to do now is to start watching, most specifically for you, would be thoughts. Thoughts that are wholesome are okay to have. Thoughts of doubt, thoughts of fear, thoughts of dejection, thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future. All of that kind of stuff is associated with suffering and bad attitudes and failures and dukkha, victimhood, all of that. We're going to be on guard to not let that kind of stuff into the mind. What are we going to let into the mind? Things that are happy, wholesome, worthwhile, things that are about the moment, things about here now, thoughts of the practice itself, thoughts of the 7 factors of enlightenment, thoughts of sati, staying focused on the Eightfold Noble Path and anapanasati are the kinds of thoughts that we want to have that keep us in the here now. But thoughts about the past and thoughts about next month's deadline and all of that kind of stuff is the source of the same mediocre lifestyle that you've had that we're calling suffering. So where's your joy? Dan, wakey, wakey. Your happiness and joy and success do not depend upon deadlines. They depend upon, can you train for that state of mind or not? Do you think you can do it?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, exactly right. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, I mean, considering that my general kind of state of mind has generally been a lot higher than it had been before. Yeah, I know that I can. It's just hard sometimes. When you're playing on hard mode, it gets harder.
Yes, except when you're laughing, it makes it easier.
Mm-hmm.
The laughter, that's almost like the juice that lifts you off the ground. That's the aha, I caught you part. There's actually a laugh. I caught you. So allow those laughs. Allow that as medicine.
Mm-hmm.
With this confidence that you can do that. You already know that you have the confidence that you'll make that deadline next time. And not only that, but it won't be near as much work as it was this time. You've already put in most of the work.
Yeah, the problem is
Next time.
yeah. Problem is I have 2 other grants due for the next deadline. So
Yeah, there's always more suffering you can bring on yourself, or you can figure out that, wait a minute, you're pretty close to the end of all of this. Let's enjoy the rest of the game.
okay. It'll take some practice, I think.
That's what I'm asking you to do. Is practice. Practice being a skilled winner. Practice being on top of your game. Practice making that your delight and joy of the success of your job and the success of your life is not dependent upon the NIS.
Mm-hmm.
They do not determine your joy. You do that. Now, is that wonderful or what? Can you do it? This is the next question. The first question is, whose damn fault is it anyway? Because you've been blaming the NIS.
NIH. Yeah.
NIH, right. NIH, sorry. National Institute of Health, right. I know. I've actually been in their building.
Mm-hmm.
That's so around. So, the NIH and their system and the way that they do it, including all of the deadlines and all of that kind of crap, is not the problem, and therefore they are not to blame for your disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
You're to blame for your disappointment because you were ignorantly thinking that your success was dependent upon them, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not. Your success is dependent upon your own damn work. It's your own damn fault that you feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm giving you not only the method, but hopefully also the determination to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and boogie on down the road.
Yeah. I've started something the next deadline today. So
No, I'm talking about the road is actually the Eightfold Noble Path.
okay.
That's what I'm actually pointing at. To stay in there, stay focused. But if there are disappointments, those are worldly disappointments. Just because the world has worldly disappointments does not mean that you have to have mental disappointments.
Mm-hmm.
The world is full of disappointments.
Yep.
I know an arahat in northeast Thailand that called the world a toilet bowl full of shit. And so that's, I mean, there are disappointments out there.
Yeah.
Don't let the world be choosing how you feel. Get some Vedana, get some Sukha, get some satisfaction, get some basically success. You can clean up your own mind. And Dan, you know you can do this.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot better at it for sure.
Yeah, no matter how obstructed the mind is with false and failed deadlines, you can clean your mind out and come back to this present moment and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that role or in that situation, I'm not really so much of a coach, I'm much more of a cheerleader. And so look at my butt so high in the air, as fat as it is, it's farce and part driven. And I'm up here just laughing at you. Dan, come on. Come up over that floor, get up and boogie on down the path.
I have a question about daily practice, but
I just gave you a whole lesson on daily practice and you want more. All right, go for it.
so so I realized that for like the daily mindfulness practice, I get bored of one thing and then I want to try something else, but I kind of cycle through things.
Yeah, but have you noticed that boredom?
Yeah.
Aha, I see you, Mr. Boredom. I got ya. Ha ha. You're not going to be the boss of me. I don't have to change my object of meditation just because Mr. Boredom shows up.
Well, so I've been using. Oh, I'll tell you what I've been doing lately, which because I used the little clickers that I showed you before. I don't have one on me now, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The little
Somebody else has talked about the clickers. This is from Ken Falk.
um yeah, he mentioned I because I mentioned this podcast that I heard of him doing. I told you like something about like there's an auditor or something like that, and you have to prove that you're mindful in that moment. But that's not really what I'm doing. I'm just doing it as an alternative to like a mindfulness bell every 15 minutes or something.
Okay, all right. So
And I
let's use that clicker correctly. But go ahead.
well, what I've been doing the last couple of days that I've found it's become really clear to me that almost all my dukkha, well, okay, I'm using the word dukkha in a probably gross way because I understand there's more subtlety
Never
to it.
mind. I
Yeah,
know
but
the subtle.
the well, no, I don't know the subtlety, but when I meant talk about dukkha, it's just that the shitty feeling of like, you know, usually some kind of emotion. So um it's almost always tied into verbalization in my head, almost always tied into kind of simulating an argument or simulating a discussion or something along those lines. But it's almost always linked to verbal something or other. And so,
So now that you know that that happens, my question would be, do you have the strength of mind, or
yeah,
another way of saying it, do you have the right effort once that sati arises is to throw that stuff out?
yeah, and almost always. Sometimes if it's an especially charged thing and it's a new one that most of the time it's something I've seen 1,000 times and I've done
Good,
a
that's the
thousand
whole
times.
point. Is this stuff is really, that's why they call it samsara. It's the same old thought over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, so I'm basically using that as a mindfulness bell. So anytime my verbalization kind of runs away, rather than, because when I meditate, if I have verbalization, it's very, it's not, I'm not connected to it that much most of the time. I mean, sometimes I do get dragged away by it, but if I'm in a kind of good sort of stable attention state, I'll see a voice, or that's the wrong word, hear a voice, I guess, but it'll kind of come and go and it won't be a big deal. And so what I'm trying to do is to use, because that is almost always when I get dragged away, it's almost always by verbalization, and the same kind of verbalization.
A verbal thought.
A verbal thought, usually me explaining something to someone, or me um yeah, trying to induce some kind of emotion in the audience or something, like make sure they know how much suffering they caused or something like that from the past, this kind of thing. I mean, I'm not necessarily the last
Well,
week.
that's getting right into the neighborhood, though, of Dhamma, contemplating Dhamma. And that would be more of a wholesome thought than thoughts about the past. Or explaining something to someone is actually kind of living in the future,
Yeah, well, so what I'm saying is,
planning on giving a lecture or something like that. And
yeah,
so when you catch
but it's
yourself doing
more
that,
yeah, but it's more like me, like the worst of it is me kind of simulating a conversation such that, yeah, it's not a wholesome thing when it happens, and it definitely drags up some stuff. um
all
so
right, let's go with that. It's not wholesome, and you know it's not wholesome.
yeah, I know
Okay,
for
so
sure.
that's right view. Having right view about it, the question then is coming out of it.
Yeah,
And is
yeah,
this
well,
the time or the point in time that you click the clicker?
no, the clicker, this is a different practice from the clicker. I got bored of the clicker. So this is, so the click with the clicker, I just try to do it 500 times a day or 200 times a day, or I'd set a goal. And as I got better, I could do it more during the day. And that, when I clicked it, it was just me coming to the here now. That's all it was. It was a very simple thing. And so it was
It's
basically,
easy enough to click half mindedly and not actually come to the here now.
yeah, but I
In
didn't do
fact, clicker as modern times is also what is often referred to, especially by Muslims, as the worry beads. You see, they will take a bead one at a time. Some Buddhists do this too, and they'll have a whole mala that's got 108 beads on it, and one of the beads there has a place on it so that we know that we've done a full circle.
uh-huh.
So this clicker is not a new thing. It's just a new piece of technology for an old device.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
but
these worry beads often wind up being nothing more than a mechanical thing. In other words, there's no real waking up, it's just mechanically moving the bead one at a time, almost as if it were the same thing as rolling or twiddling thumbs. Now, in fact, you could see that it would be very easy and possible to just start clicking that clicker
that's, yeah, so,
and just
so
keep clicking it.
yeah.
And while
So
you're clicking it, something happens, and you start paying attention to that while that clicker is still going. But you're over here with your mind, and the hell with the clicker. But you got 500 clicks in today.
yeah, so what you're describing is something that can happen. So what would happen is basically I would click. So it wasn't just random clicking. I would click when I had the intention of coming to the here and now, if nothing else, whether or not I actually did it, which isn't useless because it's still remembering to do it. So it's still marking something important. But you're right. Sometimes I would click it without actually coming to the here and now, but it was still an affirmation of remembering to do it. So when I realized that that was happening, I started clicking only after I came to the here and now, in which case I had fewer in the day that I actually got done. But
But you had better. Good.
yeah,
Good.
yeah.
All right.
So,
Now, okay, go ahead.
well, so at the moment though, I'm using the verbalization as my kind of alarm to come to the here and now.
That's
So
much more closely to the way that the Buddha would teach to do it,
I
as
think I'm just
opposed with
kind of
a
alternate
worry beads.
between them because, like I said, I kind of sometimes I'm like, oh, well, let me try this again. So I feel like if I go back and forth, I feel like I'll, I'll maintain my enthusiasm for it because I did the.
But guess what? You can get bored with them both at the same time. Your enthusiasm is not dependent upon the actual practice unless enthusiasm is your practice. And that's
Mhm.
what I'm trying to get you to do is to change your focus. And the way that I would say it, let's talk about the clicker for just a moment, Tim.
Okay.
Instead of getting a high number of clicks or a change of reference in the sense of be here now, let's do that for a fewer number. But when you do it, you're going to do it with the full blown intensity of a full cycle of anapanasati. That's going to have gladdening of the mind. It's going to have inspection of the mind and cleaning all the hindrances out. It's going to have the quality of um, right attitude in the sense of being a winner and feeling that win and getting the elation of the winner, becoming elated in that moment. And then we settle down into a state of steady state sukha, and that's where we begin to enjoy the moment. Enjoying the moment without having first jhana is not nearly as sweet as being in first jhana for the moment. So whenever you click it to the point of getting into first jhana. But that's going to take some intensity. It's going to have to be a dedication of practice. It's going to have, can do this. I do this. And soon the doing and the joy of the success outweighs the I. But that's what we're going to let settle down, leaving it more of a pure, ah. We want to bring some intensity into this with every click that you make. Now, this intensity should not take more than about 10 seconds or so. But if you start doing it throughout the day, you'll begin to build a joy of life, an intensity, a noble minded winner to become the lion
Mhm.
because you're developing the skill of it. The same thing is true then once you would get into this state of sukha, which if you've got that state of sukha, that's when we can really, in that really restful place, start watching the mind to make sure that wholesome thoughts are there. And you're already beginning to do this. You can begin to tell what thoughts are unwholesome. Every time you see an unwholesome thought come into mind, that should be an opportunity to dance again. Aha, I see you. I'm the winner here. I'm the champion. I can take care of every thought that comes into this mind.
Yeah. No, it's pretty rare
So,
that it's pretty rare that I get caught on the hook for longer than like 10 seconds or so, I would say.
all right. So I am the 10-second champion. Start adding that juice to it. The very juice that you actually did want if you had gotten that deadline. So
Mhm.
think about what it was that you deprived of yourself And start giving yourself that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really closely wrapped up with success, with winning, with
Mm-hmm.
can do. Now, you've heard me say before, and this is a really appropriate time, that that quality that is the first noble step is no matter how obstructed the mind is with the failure of having lost a deadline, no matter how obstructed the mind is, I can clean that stuff out and I can come back. I know I can do this. I can come really back to the here now, not halfway here, but fully here with all of the accoutrements of wonderful feelings, satisfaction,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to be on guard and enjoy this present moment. And you start giving yourself that over and over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And especially make sure that you do it every time that you sit down in the chair. Literally take a load off your mind when you take a load off your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, this is so wonderful. Really do. Enjoy your life every minute. Have that high, have that success every minute, every time you think of it.
Mm-hmm.
Bring these qualities together for you. This attitude of a winner, this lion's attitude. Bring that satisfaction into it. Make that part of the program so that you're satisfied. You're sukha. This is pleasurable. This is really nice. Get into that state every time you sit down is that would say, this is really nice. I like this is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So come into that state of satisfaction over and over and over again. And by doing so, that'll put the mind fit for work so that you can really start watching this stuff that's inappropriate, like explaining things in the future or having conversations or whatever like that. And then you can say to yourself, "Oh, that's too much work. I'll save that conversation when I've got somebody who's willing to listen to it."
Is everybody's is the verbal the most difficult thing for everybody, or is that just a kind of person dependent thing?
No, actually, it's the, to be honest with you, it's the very first thing and it's the easiest thing to go. And that's true for everybody.
Okay.
And you're working on it. You're going in that direction by becoming the guard for those thoughts. You're beginning to choose and select which thoughts you're having. Once you get very good at selecting which thoughts you're having, you can begin to turn the faucet off so that there's no more thoughts at all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what the heck is that good? I'm not sure that that's a wonderful thing to do, but you can do it. And this is how. The better thing is to keep the thoughts rolling, but always be on guard so that they're always healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And constantly coming back to that sati, constantly reminding yourself to be joyous, to be happy, to be successful, to be the lion.
Mm-hmm.
Because the natural, normal way is to fall into being a victim again. You're in the habit of being a victim. So you have to remind yourself constantly to be the lion
Uh-huh.
with great joy, great gusto.
Yeah.
I think you need to practice that. I think you're still kind of under the weight of having lost that deadline.
Uh yeah, no, I don't have time to worry about that because I've got another one coming up. So
Well, spend your time thinking about how marvelous and wonderful your life is, whether there's deadlines or not.
yeah.
And keep remembering to do that. Keep remembering to pump yourself back up.
Mm-hmm.
Watch them thoughts. Be careful about what you allow into the mind.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'm grateful for is that whenever I have one of these big deadlines and my meditation goes off the rails a little bit, I can see an obvious difference during the day to, yeah, kind of my mood during the day and the types of things that drag me away. So it does kind of reinforce the importance of practice.
So now your practice should be more and more and more into your job. This is
Yeah,
not a matter of sitting on a cushion. This is a matter of living.
I think it needs to
This is,
be because otherwise my skill just goes up and up and up and up and then it tanks whenever I have a deadline and then I have to regain it. So I think
exactly. Now you've got the point. Right. You recognize you're creating that cycle.
yeah. Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to.
No, the word is hard is because you're disappointed and you feel like a failure. It's not hard. Never mind, start again. You screwed it that time, so flippin' what? It's not hard.
Yeah, but I mean, it's hard. It's hard. Well, it's especially hard when you don't get a lot of sleep. I guess that's it's hard. That's for me being mindful. If I don't get a lot of sleep, then it's a lot harder to be mindful. I've noticed. So
I thought that we had talked about how to go to sleep at night. We'll do that at another time.
no, I don't have trouble normally going to sleep. But if I have a deadline in a week and I have to get a lot of things done, I just don't sleep as much. So that,
Okay. Well, take care of yourself. In fact, you'd be surprised that working when you're tired is not nearly as productive as working when you're really on top of your game.
yeah, I agree with that. But it's still the case that if you have something due in 4 days, you have to get things done.
All deadlines are artificial.
Well, some pay you though if you make them.
Yeah, but not in 4 days. You don't, your job, you rarely have a 4 day deadline.
Mm, yeah, I mean, I'll have a 2 week deadline though,
Yeah.
and I won't miss sleep until it's a 4 day deadline.
Right. Okay. So now you need to pace yourself so that the last few days of that deadline, you know you're going to win.
Yeah,
You see, that 4 day the 4 days before the deadline is when you go into panic mode because you think you're going to lose.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, think about that. Think about that. That you knew you were going to lose that deadline before you lost it.
yeah, yeah. There's a
And
few
that's
things that I could probably do to fix it. I've talked to my boss about some of them, about some of the yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. But yeah,
there is a sweet spot. The first few days of the deadline, you don't want to work too hard, but you want to work a lot in the sense of figuring out what needs to be done. This will be
yeah.
kind of the initial time.
No, I figured all
Then
that
during
out.
the middle of the time is when you really want to put in the hours to get her done, the middle third. And
Yeah,
then the last third, you're going to skate into victory.
yeah, but sometimes there's moving parts that are out of my control, like other people, like waiting on calculations being done on a computer, these kind of things. So sometimes you don't have all the everything you need until the last hour. But either way, I had a nice long chat with my boss about all these things that I think need to be in place for this not to happen again. So we'll see whether the system works.
Okay, that's the if you've got the right attitude, it'll work. You've heard mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter.
Yeah.
So lighten up about these deadlines and start living your life as if you were, the only deadline you had was this next breath.
Yeah, I have a curious question.
All right.
So people in monasteries, right? In a way, I figure they have a lot of advantages because,
And disadvantages. It's a mixed bag for both sides.
but I'd imagine that the big advantages are that you can kind of shield yourself from certain demands that would derail one's practice pretty easily from worldly things. So
If
that,
that's true and that's how the monk practiced, then what happens when he is no longer capable of shielding himself from the kind of stuff?
well, this is my point. So it seems to me like it would be a mixed bag in this sense. It seems to me that if someone in my position who has these kind of worldly things could get to the point where it doesn't derail them, that would be practice that a typical monk might not have, even though they would be able to make more progress because
Let
they.
us say that he will do exactly what you're doing, but his deadlines are completely different, his pressures are completely different, but they're both mental turmoil that each one of you, in your own way, gives yourself.
Okay.
Then, in fact, the grass is not greener on the other side of the of the meditation hall gate or the what gate. Nope, grass is not greener.
Seems
But
green.
luckily,
It looks greener.
well, the hopefully the lucky part is that the students have access to a good friend. But now that we have the internet and we have Skype, you've got that.
So, but it must be the case, right? That somebody who has a job, who has these other things, that they have different demands than somebody in a monastery. It must be the case that because you have less time that you can practice and still maintain a job and your normal relationships and that kind of thing, right?
Yes.
So it seems like that's a challenge that someone in a monastery doesn't share. Is that incorrect? I mean, I understand that they have other pressures and they probably want to get farther, more awakening faster, and that these are just kind of pressure that they feel that I don't necessarily really feel because that's not a big pressure to me at the moment. I'm just trying to be happy and live my life, basically.
Let us put it this way. The question that you're asking has a subtle kind of answer that's very difficult to put into words. And that the way that people normally understand that is by having some time in both worlds. So that they come to understand that the worlds are different. The world of the temple or the world of the workaday world are different. They both have their own challenges. Being around children or not having children around, that has its own unique challenges. Having animals around or not around has its own unique challenges.
Uh huh.
And in fact, inside the temple, one of the old stories is that the young monk comes to the old master and says, "Why do you get all the food? Life here is tough for me. And everybody pays respect to you, and nobody pays any attention to me." And the old
Mm-hmm.
monk thought about that for a second, because you see, in fact, this young monk is doing very much like the kinds of things that you're doing, but you're doing it at a much more sophisticated level. The young monk wants attention. He wants the reward of the food. He wants to have name and fame. So
Mm-hmm.
all of that kind of stuff in the mind is already there, whether the person is practicing wrongly at the temple or rightly out in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And so the old monk said this. He says, you think you've got trouble. All of these people who give me all of this food, they want me to solve every little problem they've got. They come groveling to me, expect me to know what their problems are and what their solutions to their problems are. And not only that, but they expect me because I'm the abbot here to behave in a certain way. And I'd rather boogie on down the road than pay attention to what these people would expect out of me. You're lucky, you little spot. Get used to the fact that I'd really like to trade places with you. See how you like this place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really excellent Dhamma lesson that we can all learn, even if we're nobody's in the temple. But the problems of life are they're going to be in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
If there's anything, the temple only allows us a little better opportunity to wake up.
Yeah, but that's
Hopefully they
big.
come. Yeah, that's a big thing. Okay. Well, guess what, Dan? You've called me on the internet. Wakey, wakey. This is yet another opportunity to wake up. That you are in charge of your life. That you are not subject to deadlines by NIH. Your happiness does not depend upon them or your boss or the getter done or the papers. Your success, joy, and happiness in life depends upon can you develop those things as a skill.
Mm-hmm.
And those skills have to be developed whether you're in a Watt or whether you're laying on your bed in Atlanta or you're sitting out on this beautiful porch here in paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you go, there you are. The question is, do you have an opportunity to be around someone who screams in your ear, wakey, wakey? Ajahn Po didn't do so much screaming, but he would walk up behind me and say, ta ta ta. Sometimes he would say, not sure. And you just walk on, leaving me to ponder. But basically, he was always saying, wakey, wakey.
Mm-hmm.
Ta 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 means be here now. So that's it. Wakey, wakey is all you're going to get. And all you have to do is wakey, wakey.
Yeah.
You too can create your own miracle life.
Yeah.
Now that you know what it is, that success, that joy, that win. So you start using that as an object for your meditation for a while.
Mm-hmm.
How good can I feel in this moment? Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh.
So I think that this is a good time to finish this off. I think that you've gotten the point. The number one point is your happiness depends upon your willingness to create it, not upon deadlines and meeting them or not.
It makes it easier though if you meet them. You don't need skill if you meet them.
Well, if you're good at them, you might in fact become bored with them, and now you're no longer getting the juice out of them. They have to be hard
Yeah.
in order for you to really get the buzz off of winning.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so pace yourself.
But I bet you get a few freebies before it gets boring. I wouldn't know yet, but
you know what to do. Just think about it. Start considering this. Give yourself the joy that you know you deserve,
Mm-hmm.
and that you don't have to go to NIH to get
Yeah.
it. That's the smile I want to see.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, let's see how you can play that out then.
Yeah.
Don't wait so long to call me. Wait. In fact, the time to call me is the third of the contract. After you know, like if it's 2 weeks, then call me in 4 or 5 days.
It's in 2 weeks and call in 4 or 5 days.
Yeah. What that means is if you know if there's a new announcement for a new contract or a new deadline that's 2 weeks from today, then you calculate in that 14 days. Oh, call Damarato at about a third of that time. About 5 days later, that's what you want to call it.
Well, I have 3 deadlines in 1 month, so
You got 3 deadlines in 1 month. Oh my goodness. You really like these deadlines, don't
just need to get one of them and I'm good.
you?
So, or at least I'm good
Okay, well,
with
maybe
you.
the right thing to do is to concentrate, or not necessarily concentrate in the way that we talk about it when we're doing orange juice, but focus in on or spend more of your effort and time on just one of them with the intention you're going to win that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that option for a number of reasons, but I've already I've split up the workload with my boss earlier today. He's actually doing more than I am by a lot. So I just have to well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes in the next couple of days. We'll know exactly who's going to do what. But
All right, great. Well, don't let him be too grumpy, and don't let his grumpy make you grumpy.
we'll see. It'll be good practice.
Yeah, give him a smile. He needs it. He's probably grumpier than you are because he hasn't had this pep talk.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Be careful with grumpy bosses.
He's actually a pretty good boss. I'll give him that.
Great. Great.
All right. Well,
Well, we'll see you later.
I have a question.
All
Um,
right.
uh, I'm asking because I don't know if the time zone has changed relative to one another. What's the earliest time I can call you? That's a good time to call you.
Earliest in the day. Actually, that's difficult. Part of the reason that it would be difficult to describe is because Tam has a work schedule so that part of the month she gets up really early and goes to work at 6. And then the other part of the month she changes shifts and works from 10 until 8 in the evening. And because of that, that affects my schedule.
Okay.
But generally, I'm up sometime around 6, sometimes around 7. So anytime after that would be the right time to get in touch with me in the sense of leaving a message or calling or whatnot like that. Now, Skype has gotten kind of ratty in the sense that sometimes when you call, it does not do ding dong, and sometimes it does do ding dong, but it doesn't leave any result as to who it was that called.
I see.
And I keep reloading it. It seems to also have problems with the speakers, thinking that the speakers are off. And so I've had to disconnect all of the Bluetooth stuff. And I'm hoping that that will have some effect on it. But in any case, when you call, don't assume that something's wrong, like I'm dead or asleep or whatever like that. When you do call, that I might come back in 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. I might get a load of the fact that somebody is communicated. At
Okay.
that early hour in the morning, it's not going to be like that. But
I'm just gonna
right
see.
now,
I'm just gonna see what time that is my time.
Well, right now it is 1:20 p.m.
Okay, so here's 2:20 a.m. So,
So
so
my 7 a.m. should be your 8 p.m.
yeah, 7. Yeah,
And that's really a good time to call.
okay, because I've been waiting until 10 p.m. my time, and depending on if I have to be up really early, it makes things kind of more difficult. But if I could call even an hour earlier, that would make it easier.
Sure.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, my sleep schedule is so weird right now because of that deadline, so I don't even know what to do with myself. But
Uh,
I
Sit
think I'm gonna
down, relax, and enjoy the victory.
or practice enjoying the victory.
You practice enjoying the victory, precisely. It's going to take some work for you right now.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right.
Okay. See you later.
All right. Bye bye.